The world as we know it today, with its flora, fauna, geology, and climate, were not always this way. We will travel back in time with our friend Tina to the Carboniferous Period, approximately 360 million years ago, during the late Paleozoic era, to see what life was like. The Carboniferous is often treated in North America as two geological periods, the early Mississippian and the later Pennsylvanian. During the late Carboniferous, Europe and North America lay at the equator and were predominantly covered by tropical rainforests. These swampy forests covered the continents, dead plant material accumulated, and pressure left compressed carbon, leaving coal behind, thus the name coal forests.
The Carboniferous was a time of active mountain building as the supercontinent Pangaea came together, forming the Appalachian mountain belt of eastern North America. Carboniferous rocks in eastern North America largely consist of repeated sequence of limestone, sandstone, shale, and coal beds. The Mississippian is largely marine limestone with the Pennsylvanian deposition of coal beds. Coal beds provided much of the fuel for power during the Industrial Revolution and are still of great importance today. Since the Carboniferous period, North America has shifted, today being located as far north, no longer sitting at the equator as it did about 300 million years ago.
The Mississippian epoch climate was characterized by warm tropical humidity and high sea levels where sea life thrived. This continued for approximately 41 million years. The Pennsylvanian epoch was much drier and with the receding seas gave way to the well-known coal swamps. This water was taken up and frozen into ice at the South Pole, creating a cooler climate worldwide. With more land available, large rainforests grew, increasing the levels of oxygen in the air to around 35%, the highest the Earth has ever experienced. Today, there is only 21%. The low levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide at the end of the Carboniferous are attributed to the drawdown and burying of carbon, creating today's immense coal deposits and setting off a glaciation into the Permian.
Throughout the Carboniferous, many spectacular plants dominated the terrain, thriving in the warm, humid climate and swampy conditions. It was predominantly large trees covered in thick bark along with large ferns. As time went on, forests had been shifting further away from the swampy areas and were beginning to diversify. The bark-to-wood ratio on trees increased as trees accumulated a molecule called lignin. The bark was so thick that hardly any decomposing organism could digest it. Carboniferous pteridophytes were more centred around the waterlogged domains that developed inland. By the late Carboniferous, they had become the most common flora in their ecosystems. Today, flora is more easily digested by decomposers and is of smaller size due to decrease in oxygen.
The Carboniferous period did not have the same large mammals that we see today. Instead, it was populated by a vast number of insects. Land animals were mainly composed of millipedes, land snails, insects, and more than 800 species of cockroaches. The water was inhabited by fish, clams, mollusks, and sea urchins. A particularly interesting fossil is the Anthropleura, a giant millipede-looking arthropod that would have dominated the land. These giant creatures thrived in the Carboniferous period due to the high levels of oxygen that was in the atmosphere. This plentiful oxygen fueled the growth of such large arthropods. While we can still see insects today that closely resemble their giant ancestors, the jawless fish and placoderms of this era were also the ancestors of the sharks and fish we see today.
Towards the end of the Carboniferous, an extinction event termed the Carboniferous rainforest collapse occurred. With the onset of glaciation and sea level changes, the Earth cooled and dried, causing a loss of amphibian diversity and the collapse of many large tropical rainforests. Now, Tina will travel to the future to see what life will be like then. Central eastern USA is predicted to collide with Western Africa, becoming a part of the new supercontinent Pangaea Proxima, which means the new Pangaea. The region will likely be partially underwater in the much nearer future, with New York City predicted to be submerged in the next 120 years. There will be a large loss of animal biodiversity, especially of mammals, including the sloth, anteater, and armadillo. While the loss of biodiversity, sea level rises, and global warming of the Earth may present a bleak future, if humans start to make policy changes now, we can perhaps reverse the damage before it is too late and create a more sustainable future for both us and the environment.